Hey, everybody, this is Tom Sega from Duluth Pack, and this is the Duluth Pack podcast, Leader of the Pack. Our special guest today is Victor Fung. He is the co-founder of Greetings Tour, and we're going to learn all about what Greetings Tour means today. And I've been on the internet, Victor, looking at some of the work you do, and it is my word that I came up with is super cool. So before people know what it actually is, let's just learn a little about you from way back when, before they find out what you do for a living and how cool it is. So welcome, Victor.
Hey, how's it going?
It's
Thanks for
awesome.
having me.
You absolutely welcome. So Victor, tell us a little bit about you. Where did you grow up and what was your childhood like? And this really helps us come forward when our listeners find out what you do for a living and how talented you are on how did that all work out? And so what was your childhood like?
Yeah, well, I grew up in New York. It's a neighborhood called Bayside in Queens. Kind of had a suburban feel. You still need a car to get around. I know New York City is like its own bubble of the world. So it still surprises me, like when I'm on the road and I tell people I'm from New York and they ask me what part. Like anyone from New York City is just like, oh, I just assume New York City. But
Right.
my childhood, so my sister and I, we were like first generation born here to Chinese immigrant parents. My mom's from Hong Kong, dad's from China. Uh, and as far as like my childhood, kind of a little story where you want to like fit in, with your peers and what you see on TV and the media. But meanwhile, my parents are really trying to hold on to their roots with like traditional Chinese foods and culture. And looking back, I really do appreciate that though. Hard to see it at the time. And it may have, created a confusing sense of identity, but it played like a important role, like in at least in my path in life. Um, and my high school years, I had the typical kind of rebellious stage too. So
Is that how you ended up an artist? Is the rebellion, or was it something earlier in your life that got you
I
really
mean,
interested in arts?
yeah, when I was really young, I drew a lot, but this was like maybe like kindergarten, first grade, and then didn't really do much art after that. I wasn't really into it. No one in my family was into art or anything. And then I'd say it all kind of picked up when I got into like graffiti in school, which is pretty common at the time in New York, at least. Everyone had this like tag growing up. But I kind of stuck with that and got into my fair share of trouble as a kid, but later on used
Don't
it in a positive way. So
so tell us about that. So you're young and you did some drawing and then you left it for a while and then you came back and you said you started doing graffiti. Is first of all, I mean, is it legal to even do graffiti like you were doing or no? And then how from that, whether it was legal or illegal, whatever, right? How did that help pave your path to where you said, hey, I can make a career out of this?
yeah, I mean that's well, to answer your first question, by definition, it's not legal. I mean, most kids kind of get into it from, tagging and doing something illegally, and then a lot of my friends grew out of it too. I kind of stuck with it, and then there's legal walls. There's places that let you do it, and you can practice. Way beyond just tags. Pretty elaborate, like full color pieces. But it's all like lettering based. It was kind of my personal escape from the 9 to 5 corporate world that I was in later on. But I mean, the bridge to actually doing this as a career, I mean, pretty long story, but I mean, it's from my friends knowing I did graffiti here and there, like they'd ask me to do, I don't know, their bedrooms, and it escalated into a local radio station want to do a mural for their studio, and just kind of picked up from there, and did little jobs here and there. So,
Victor, is it all like I'm looking out actually out my office window and I see graffiti right now on the side of a train. And you mentioned there, and it just triggered something for me. I see a lot of letters. The mural's really cute. Is it a mural, the right thing to call it? Is really cool on the train I'm looking at right now, but there's a lot of letters incorporated with it. Is that part of all the artistry of it?
Yeah, I mean, it's based on like writing. You create this name and identity for yourself, and it's just like how stylized you can make these letters, really, and how much you can get it seen. um, but yeah, I mean, it goes. It's a really deep subculture in its own, so people kind of travel. I don't know if you're talking about, are you seeing like freight trains?
Yeah, this is a freight
Yeah,
train
yeah.
that I'm looking at right now, and it just as you said that, it made me think about it. And so I'm looking off to the side here, and I can see it's a beautiful mural, if you will. That's what I would call it as a layman, but it's all incorporated into words.
Yeah, yeah, and those are just like tags and people's names that they just repeat again and again. And I mean, for me personally, like I grew out of that because it's very like a lot of ego in that world, I'd say. You can
Okay.
only paint your own name so many times, before. Well, me personally, I just kind of got bored of it. Like, what value does that give to other people? Don't get me wrong, I definitely appreciate the culture of where it's gotten me today, but I guess I kind of personally just grew out of it.
So Victor, you mentioned that it was an escape from the 9 to 5. Let's talk about the 9 to 5 for a little bit here, and then how you decided to transition from the 9 to 5 to hey, for the rest of my life, I might do what I love to do, and that's my escape.
Yeah, well, I mean, I went to both high school and college in New York. Kind of just picked my high school. Sorry, my college was Baruch College in the city. Actually, I guess notable people that went there, like Ralph Lauren went there, and also like I don't know how to pronounce his last name, that farmer bro guy, Martin Shkreli went there, as well as the WeWork guy too, WeWork owner, Adam
Okay.
Neumann. Also kind of, I don't know if he, but I kind of just picked business as a major. And looking back, it wasn't really, I mean, I got my first job out of like a college fair at the school, and actually stayed at that job. I was email marketing for about like 8 years. And that whole time kind of just living a bit of like the Clark Kent lifestyle, just doing my work and then going home, and any free time I had was dedicated to this art form, which I really didn't benefit at all from financially in any way. It was just like a love of doing it. Uh, but yeah, I mean, looking back, I personally don't feel like I got too much out of school. It wasn't really for me. But looking back, I do really wish I took more of an entrepreneurship course, because I feel like that's where I ended up later on. So.
Let's circle back to that later because I think you hit on something there that you turned a passion of yours into a business, and now you're like, oh boy, maybe I have to learn the hard way on what this business part of it all is about. But in 2011, you opened is it Klughaus?
Yeah, Klughaus Gallery. So it was really like a good friend of mine, and business partner. I just want to give it a shot. We both involved in the graffiti world, and found the cool location for rent. Like, it was right around the corner from my apartment downtown at the time. And I was still working the 9 to 5, and we decided to open this art gallery that was like focused on people with graffiti roots, even though the art we were showing wasn't necessarily graffiti. Um, so yeah, I was working my 9 to 5 on my lunch breaks, running back to the gallery, putting out fires, and going back to work. And to be honest, we really knew nothing about the business. We just like jumped in. We're like, oh, how hard could it be? You just hang some art and sell some art. But we quickly learned a lot from that business, and we definitely had the artist side. No problem. We had many talented artists we work with who actually now, a lot of people we shown today became really big artists, but the selling of the art was the much harder part, right? So I think that out of that gallery, more than being like a successful, profitable business, we really did build a really strong community with that location. There was nothing like that around in that area. Completely different if you go there today. All our show openings, they're packed, and we built a huge network of artists. But we didn't last too long there just due to the rent. So we did some pop-up shows after we closed, but it more so like evolved into like an agency model to actually commission graffiti murals.
Okay. So let's talk about so you're still working your 9 to 5, you opened the gallery. What were your responsibilities and what was a typical day like for you then with the gallery?
Yeah, I think with the gallery, like, well, my initial thought going into this, like, oh, we could do a show once a month and it wouldn't be too much work. But it was kind of, you do an opening once a month, but there's a lot of work leading up to it. And it was a whole business we really knew nothing about, like I mentioned before. And my day-to-day, I mean, just kind of hanging the art and trying to connect collectors with the artists. And what ended up happening is that more and more people started coming into the gallery looking to commission graffiti, or they were looking to buy graffiti art on canvas. And we're like, none of the artists that we showed actually did graffiti as their art, which is very strange. We were just trying to show a lot of artists that had a similar background. They never went to art school, and they kind of just learned everything through this art form of graffiti. And what we realized is like, oh, there's actually no company that exists that does like commissioned, legal graffiti. And at the time, this is probably like 2011. I guess Banksy was really big, became like a household name, and we found that there were actually companies like this in the UK. And we're like, hey, no one is doing anything like this in America, so why don't we just do it? We rather have people that are actually graffiti artists painting graffiti than them hiring like a scenic artist that knows nothing about it, So that's how it kind of evolved into this agency model. And for us, it was great because once the physical gallery was closed, our overhead was just nothing. And I'm just working behind the computer all day. And, I was doing a lot of the installations. Me and my partner were doing a lot of installations ourselves. And then we started connecting artists with different clients, and it kind of grew from there.
What's an installation?
Oh, sorry, the installation meaning just like the painting of a mural. So
okay.
At the time, and maybe we were lucky because it was New York, so a lot of like tech companies would hire us for their offices. We did like LinkedIn's offices, Facebook's offices, and and a lot of events. They're looking for like live art as well, a little bit of edginess to it. So
can we talk a little bit about, I mean, what all goes into being an artist doing what you do with murals? I mean, are you painting with brushes, or are you painting with spray cans, or how? Please enlighten us.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the traditional murals are done with brush. And I forgot to mention too, like we call ourselves the spray paint specialists. So that was just kind of the term we use a lot. And the difference with our murals was that the main medium was spray paint, which actually isn't always the easiest to do indoors. Like we would have to cover a lot. It would look like, I don't know if you ever watched show Dexter, but it would just be like plastic everywhere, so the fumes wouldn't get all, and the overspray wouldn't get all over the place. But it did give it a very unique look and aesthetic that you can't really replicate with brush.
So, Victor, did you have mentors as you were coming up through and as you're learning that, hey, there's some people that are getting known in the mediums that I do, and I want to emulate their styles? Or was this something that you're the mentor and you're the first one who's taken it kind of into a business form?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it's funny because when I was very passionately into painting graffiti, I was always kind of like anti quote unquote selling out, of getting paid to do something. And to me, also, it's kind of like a very pure form of art because you're not doing it you're not doing it to sell a canvas. It's just like you want to say, I was here. And kind of in the bigger picture, like a lot of art is that, it's just like, you know, go back to like Michelangelo or Da Vinci painting something is like a moment of time and them just showing, hey, we're humans and we did this in our time, and I was kind of very anti just getting paid for it. And I don't know how that transition really happened. I guess I started realizing after working 8 years doing something that I wasn't too passionate about, I was like, hey, why not make a living doing what I love? And I slowly let go from there and was able to just, it felt good too, connecting other artists so that they could do something they love and make a living off of it as well, not just myself. So it felt good. And that's kind of how I just let go and grow the business from there.
So, Victor, when you had Klughaus Gallery, how did you market then? Because that's part of the business is you need to market your shop. And how did you market? And then as we go forward, I'm going to ask that question again as you've gone on from there and become a bigger name in it and how you market today. But back then, how did you market?
Yeah, well, with the gallery, it was a very like niche audience, and that was just kind of very localized to New York City. So, we would only attract people from New York City mainly to come to our shows and everything like that. And I think we grew a name out of that where people in LA have heard of us. We'd have artists kind of coming from all over. So we got that name. And then when it evolved into that agency model, we actually created like a different branding or like a sister company. It was called like Graffiti USA, just to make it kind of obvious what we do. Because a lot of people see Klughaus have no idea what that is, and I'll be honest, at the time, what really helped with our business was SEO. Like there was nothing, we had no competitors in that world, or even like mural artists in general, like just graffiti artists for hire or mural artists for hire. Nothing like that existed. So like someone just Google it and they'll find us. And a lot of that is where we got most of the business, at least how it started growing outside of New York.
When you started growing outside of New York, did you have companies then? Would that be mostly like corporate business? A company would say, hey, Victor, we love what we see that you do, and we want to have our building have some graffiti art done on our building? Or how did that work out? And how far did you expand at that point?
Yeah, it was mainly New York and LA at first, and then like Chicago. And then, because a lot of the companies we painted these murals for, they were like pretty big. They're global companies or national companies, so they had offices all over. So we might do an office for someone in New York, and then they open one in LA, and they'd reach back out to us. But yeah, it was through existing clients with new offices and just, I guess, mainly people looking for graffiti artists and not being able to find them online. So.
Victor, so you transitioned from the Klughaus Gallery to Mural and Art Consulting. Was that Graffiti USA at that point? And what year was that?
Yeah, I think that transition kind of happened late. I'd say it was probably like, I want to say 2019-ish. But yeah, it got really confusing because Klughaus we kind of just left behind. It just didn't make sense with what we were doing. And Mural Art Consulting was something we wanted to do that was more focused on connecting or like artists that we represented with clients that for them to do like their true art versus Graffiti USA was more like commission, like an art company wants to see, I don't know, their company values painted in their office, and it wasn't really representative of like an artist's true art. So the mural art consulting was more so to really try to like fight for the artists to truly express themselves, and you know, kind of connect clients with the right artists that they're looking for.
So Victor, in going back a little bit, in 2014, you and Lisa Beggs founded Greetings Tour, and you are the artist, and Lisa is the photographer. How did this all come together, and what was the thought behind all of that?
Yeah, so in 2014, so Lisa and I started dating a little bit before that, and there was basically a wall in my neighborhood in Chinatown that would always pass by. There was like graffiti on it, and I always asked, "Hey, can I paint something nice on that for the neighborhood?" I'd asked the people working there, and they didn't really even speak English, and they just kind of ignored me. I asked many times, and then one day, funny enough, a friend of mine from high school I grew up with, he actually became a detective in the precinct there in Chinatown. And I just ran into him in the street right by the wall. I was like, "Hey, what's going on?" I was like, "Hey, there's this wall here I've been trying to do something nice on for a while." And he's like, "Oh, let's go talk to them." And then I went with him. We rolled up in the police car. And they saw he was like in uniform, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, go ahead." And then we got to paint that wall, and unconsciously I just referenced an old like large letter postcard. I want to do like greetings from Chinatown, and just put different elements from the community inside the letters. And the response from the community was like amazing. You know, from all those years of just writing my own name, no one cares about that, you know. So we had people, you know, older Chinese guys walking by who would never look twice at any other kind of mural or art, and they were like super interested in what we were doing, asking about this project, and we're like, "Oh, we might have something here." You know, it makes people feel good and creates this kind of landmark. And I guess Lisa and I, we went on a road trip on the West Coast, and we saw some people living in vans like along the coast. We're like, "You know what? Why don't we just try traveling for a year and painting these murals all over, and just kind of see what happens?" And Lisa's family actually used to own an RV dealership when she was young, and one of her first jobs was washing RVs. I knew nothing about RVs because I'm from the city and never even stepped foot in one. But we ended up getting an RV from her brother-in-law, who still worked at a dealership, and just took off doing this, and rest is kind of history.
So what you go on tour, right? You were in an RV. That's pretty cool. Traveling the country. And so you would solicit business and market business through your SEO and all that. People would get a hold of you. You'd go to a new town and then do the greeting murals for them.
Yeah, so I guess to back up a bit, I was still running this mural agency, which is completely different than this greetings. So greetings tour is more of a passion project I started to do um, because I could work remotely. I mean, this was like way before COVID. I was just, you know, full time working from home, I guess, and I was able to just, you know, take calls and do everything remotely. So we were traveling, and then this also helped because I was meeting a lot of artists on the road and also connecting them with work. But as far as the greeting store goes, that was something we weren't necessarily even trying to make a business at first. It was just we wanted to create these landmarks, and work with different communities and create something that would last and people would be, you know, happy about. And it just coincidentally happened at the same time, and it worked out.
So can you trademark graffiti art?
Uh, it's possible. I mean, if you create, yes, I guess the short answer is yes. Well, yes and no. I mean, some people who do like images, repeated images, they could trademark that. Uh, the Copyright Office may not allow you to trademark a tag because it's like a word. Or maybe I think more so you might be asking about like copywriting or trademarking.
Well, I guess maybe copywriting might be better for your
Yeah. I
media.
mean, you could definitely copyright, yeah, anything really if it's art. Um, so yeah, we do copyright like our murals, for example. People have copyrighted their tags. That's not a problem.
Okay. And can you give us an idea of some of the cities that you've done work? Obviously, New York City. You're in California now, so I'm assuming you're doing some work in California. But where else have you done work where people could actually go and see your work?
Yeah, I mean, to date, I mean, we've painted over 60 plus murals, and this is specifically the Greetings Tour project I'm talking about. I mean, we have them everywhere from, New York to Orlando, all the way up to Alaska. Uh, just you can check out our website. We have like a map actually of all of them, and some states we have multiple murals. Yeah, I mean, our kind of one of our goals in the beginning of this project, which we just randomly said one day, was to paint in all 50 states. And then we tried to make that happen. I mean, we're at like 27 states, but then along the way, we learned a lot and we realized like that goal has evolved quite a bit because it's not really about just having murals in all 50, like, so what, right? When you reach that point, what does that mean to other people? I think the difference with our project is that we really try to work with communities and create like true public art, whereas it's different when you're graffiti, for example, you go and you just paint your name, or you go and you just paint your art over and over again in a place, but it has no meaning to people that live there and work there. So with the Greetings Tour project, we work a lot just with communities on asking them like what best represents their city and what they want to see. And we also invite local artists to collaborate with us. Sometimes we'll give them a letter to do their artwork in. And that way, when we leave, it's more meaningful to the cities than if we were just drop in out of nowhere, paint something and leave.
Sure. And you mentioned there, and so I want to talk about this right now is can you give our listeners all of your social handles? So number one, they can see your work. I'm looking at it right now.
Oh yeah.
And secondly, how they can get a hold of you.
Yeah, sure. We're pretty active on Instagram, just at Greetings Tour. And you can go to greetingstour.com as well, and just click murals and you can see all the murals on there. And for those that don't have access to the internet at the time, well, you're listening to a podcast, you probably can, but it's all based off the mid-century large letter postcard, which is, greetings from the name of the city and different images within each letter.
Folks, I'm looking at this right now and it's amazing. Your work is amazing. And that leads me right to my next question for you. I'm looking at one here, Victor, that says greetings from Union County, Georgia. Give us an idea of really what goes into doing a mural like you did there. And you have it broken down so you can see there's a tremendous amount of work and it's a very large piece that you did. Give us an idea from start to finish. How do you plan for something like this? And then how do you implement that style of project and that size of project?
Yeah, well, that one in particular is a bit unique because that was actually commissioned by like a property owner. But I would say the majority of our murals, we actually work with cities. And, for anyone that's done any kind of work with governments, a lot of red tape and the process is long. So sometimes, from the first email where a city reaches out and they want to do a mural, we might not be putting paint on the wall till like 2 or 3 years later. So the process kind of starts. I mean, if they're reaching out to us, they likely know what we're doing and the whole concept and style of what we do. But most importantly, we're going back and forth on figuring out what elements or images should go inside these letters. And if you talk about like a big city like Chicago, I mean, there's just tons of stuff. So you really have to like narrow it down. And we always try to hit an element of like culture, history, landmarks, some sort of nature element. And yeah, just the design phase takes some time, going back and forth, the revisions. Also, prior to even getting to that point, it's just finding the right wall, because our murals in particular, we really want them to be like a modern day supersized postcard, right? So we want people to take photos with them, and just, send them to friends and family. And, sometimes going bigger is not always better. And it's also not always easier to go smaller either, because it's all spray paint. And I think a lot of people can't even really see the amount of detail in some of these murals. So yeah, I mean, like in Vegas, for example, we hide like tiny little Elvises and a lot of hidden Easter eggs in all these murals that you can't really see in the photos of them online. And it's part of we actually, so sorry, I'm kind of going off topic and rambling here, but
No, this is good.
so going back to what I was saying prior, the the trying to hit this goal of painting in all 50 states, we realized that like we started getting a lot of emails from people, and they would say something like, hey, we rented a car here and we drove and visited your mural, and if it wasn't for the mural, we would have never found this business here, and it made our trip very memorable, and it was an amazing experience. And it wasn't just one or two emails, we would constantly get these emails, and we realized like, hey, we're actually like bringing people to places they wouldn't normally go to kind of collect our art, kind of like collecting. People used to collect postcards back in the day, right, before photos and everything. So we created this what we call like a wall of fame incentive. We told people, hey, if you make it to like 10 or more murals, we'll send you some free prints and custom things we make just for these people that are going out of their way to explore these cities, which we have our artwork in. And we're like, our only ask of you is just support a local business and tell us about what you found out from going to visit these murals. And now we have this wall of fame going. It's been great. It's our way of like trying to help small businesses throughout the country. It gives the artwork some more value than just some color on the wall where we go.
It's so cool. I'm paging through. I mean, you have scaffolding set up, so we're not talking about small artwork here. We're talking about like this one that I'm looking at is so large. You have scaffolding set up. It's amazing. And go to the website, folks, and Facebook and friend Facebook, and look at Instagram, because it's absolutely amazing. And it's funny, as you're talking, Victor. We own a brick and mortar retail store, a flagship store here up in northern Minnesota, and we sell kind of old-fashioned postcards. And when I'm looking at some of your art, it's like, that's like those postcards. And you kept mentioning postcards there, so that's pretty cool. And then go to the map, folks, and see all the different places that you have done work. That is pretty cool. Victor, let's talk about legalities of your work. You talked a little bit about working with the city. Does the city go through like the permitting process for you when you're doing this, or do you have to go through the permitting process? How does all that work out? And then on top of that, when you get the project started during this, you said it could be up to 2 years. How do you go about the equipment needs and on hand and all of that?
Yeah, I mean, usually when we're working with cities, that they'll handle all the permitting. And I'll be honest, that some of the murals we did in the beginning, we just kind of did them rogue, and they technically might have required permits, but I think after we did them, people loved it so much I mean, literally, some of these cities we painted in that where a mural may not have been legal. Like we've seen the actual city like using our murals in their own offices, you know. So sometimes you just kind of have to do it, and you know, worst that could happen, it gets painted over. I mean, that would suck, but I think what we're doing is a bit different, and I understand why there are a lot of these codes in cities, but what we're doing, I don't think many people would find offensive at all. But yeah, as far as equipment and everything, I mean, luckily when we had the RV, there was quite a lot of storage. You know, it's funny because another funny thing is like the RV thing, we didn't really do to be like cool. These days, a lot of people doing like this van life thing, or they're just like living out of RVs, and it's like a cool lifestyle thing. But for us, it was more of like an economical thing. It was like, hey, how could we stay on the road and do this without having to like scramble and find places to stay in every city we go to? So the RV just made sense. And luckily, you know, we could store a lot of things in there. As far as like lifts and stuff like that, we would just rent them when we're in cities. But yeah, and we had power too in the RV, which because it had a generator. So if we ever had to use like a projector or something, or paint sprayer, we can always just plug right into the RV.
How about sponsors? Are you sponsored by any companies? I'm thinking if you're using spray paint, and you're doing the cool work you're doing, I would think some of these paint companies may want to sponsor you.
Yeah, so our one true sponsor from the very beginning of this project is actually Montana Cans, which is it's actually a German-based spray paint company, but they're probably one of the best when it comes to like spray paint for art purposes. And that relationship came from, you know, previous life connections in the graffiti world where people have gone on to work for the company, you know, in a corporate uh, position. And and it's also very helpful because a lot of these places sometimes will end up in remote, smaller cities and towns where there's like no way to even uh, source the spray paint. So they've been very helpful in just shipping to us. Plus, so we don't have to like store tons of spray paint. And then recently, not so some of like the large murals or like the big background blocks of color. Sharon Williams has also been very helpful and supportive of our project as well.
Victor, you mentioned you did a project in Las Vegas. A lot of people that are going to listen to this podcast have gone there, whether it's for business trade shows or they go there to have a whole bunch of fun. Where is your mural, if you only have one, or murals, if you have more than that, in Las Vegas? Where can we find that? And when you said you have the little hidden Elvises in there, piqued my interest.
Yeah, so our mural in Vegas is actually it's not on the strip, it's actually in the arts district, which is good because a lot of people don't even know about the arts district in Vegas. You know, a lot of locals do hang out in that area. But it's on Main Street in the arts district, which is kind of, you know, towards closer to the what is it, the old Vegas, like by Fremont over there. But we only have that one, and we try not to do more than one. Well, we would never do like more than one like greetings from Las Vegas mural in a city, because the goal is to, you know, make these kind of landmarks in itself. If we do more than one in a city, it's usually a completely different style, or it would be like a name of a like a neighborhood or something like that. Um, but yeah, definitely check it out if you have the time to go out there.
And for the people that are in the Midwest, Victor has done a mural. He's done a mural in Fargo, North Dakota. Yeah, I see you've been in Hawaii and St. Lucia. Boy, you've been all over. You go on the map, folks, and take a peek. This is really, really cool.
Yeah, in the Midwest, we have probably the most murals in the state of Ohio because that's where Lisa's from, and you know, one leads to another. So
I see that right now as I'm looking at it. Victor, what is or what has been the most difficult project that you've had to take on so far, and why?
hmm. Most difficult project is a tough one to answer because I think every mural just comes with its own challenges. And a lot of mural painting, to be quite honest, is just on the spot problem solving because you're out there. It's not like you're in a studio in a controlled environment. Weather is a huge issue. They're all outdoors, so like sometimes you're just stuck sitting in a hotel room for days. It was great when we had, if we're on the road in an RV, you're technically home, so we would just wait it out. But sometimes if I'm like flying to city to paint a mural and it's just pouring for like days, we're just sitting there waiting, can't really do anything. But oh, actually, the Hawaii one, speaking of weather, the mural we did in Hawaii was actually one of our most unique murals because it wasn't on a wall. It was actually on the ground, and it's about like 50 feet by 75 feet. It's almost the size of like a little bigger than a basketball court, I'd say. And that one we ended up doing in the rainy season in Hawaii. So you can imagine trying to paint on the ground when it's raining. Because it was meant to be viewed from way up high at like a resort looking down. That one was a challenge. And we actually went back recently to touch it up like 4 years later. This was just a couple weeks ago. And then our whole family ended up getting COVID 2 days in. So we had to find some extra help out there. But, things happen. And I'd say that's with everything you do, right? So you just got to find a way to deal with it.
What would you say if you had to, what your favorite project to date has been? One that just burned in your memory that was a blast.
I mean, when people ask me this, my answer is usually the one we painted in Alaska. We did in Anchorage. Because it was like a dream goal of ours in the beginning, we didn't actually think like we'd make it happen. Plus, like we started this thinking we'd only do this for 1 year. And we went on 6+ years living full time in an RV doing this everywhere. But that one stood out. It was 2018. We also got engaged there, Lisa and I, so that has some personal meaning as well. So, and although I can say we were only there in the summertime, where it's like light all day, we're actually there over the 4th, and they're like shooting up fireworks and it's still light out, which is very odd. But I can't say, how it is in the wintertime. I'm sure it's pretty harsh, but I do love the wildlife and just nature out there.
Victor, where's a location that you haven't painted yet?
I would definitely love to do one in Duluth.
Well, we'll have to work on that for you, and we'll make sure that it's June, July, or August. How's that?
But I mean, I'd love to. I mean, we've done some like internationally on like in island like Bermuda, St. Lucia, like you said. I would love to paint a mural in like Japan, Tokyo. I don't know. There's something about Japanese culture that I really like, and one of my favorite cities I've been to. But one thing a unique project that I'd love to do is literally just like pull up in like a ghost town in America and paint like a really elaborate mural for this like in the middle of nowhere desolate place. I've actually researched there was like a city in Wyoming with a population of like one. It was like Buford, Wyoming, that I tried to reach out to do a mural for them. And it was a weird story. Like a Vietnamese coffee brand ended up buying the entire town. It was just super bizarre, but I didn't have luck there. But I've still been looking into something like this, and I would love to do it.
That would be like Field of Dreams. You build it and they will come.
Exactly. Yeah.
Perfect. And Victor, if there's somebody who's young and in their formidable years and they're saying, boy, I'm hearing this podcast, or this is something that I've really dreamed about, that I would love to do something like that for a living as well. What advice could you give somebody that's just starting out or just thinking that this maybe is something? Because, I mean, how many people are we going to talk to who do what you do for a living? What advice could you give to somebody who wants to get into your type of business?
Yeah, I mean, it's first off, it's kind of interesting that even hearing you refer to it as like a career or job. Like quite honestly, we kind of just winged this, and it evolved organically. And there isn't any supposed to be any rules to follow, and that's the part of magic. You could just change things to work the best for your situation as you go along. Because we never really aspire to quote unquote another couple who's traveling by RV painting postcard murals across America. So, I would suggest, create your own path and just define it as yours.
Victor, is there any formal education, maybe not for graffiti art, but a formal education somebody could get that would help them along the way and maybe bolster, give them a head start if they were going to get into something similar?
Yeah, I'd say back when we started, there wasn't even really, or nothing that I knew of, like specific classes or courses for this kind of thing. But I've discovered, at least recently, they do have like sign painting courses, which is a good base to start from. I mean, to this day, I still don't know of any like, if you're talking about like spray paint specifically, I don't know if it's even formally taught in art schools. There might be some classes of this that exist out there, but one of our goals was to show that spray paint is just another medium. Why can't it be taught in schools? And it's not always associated with vandalism and graffiti.
Have you thought about getting into education at all in your career?
To be honest, not really. I mean, I'm always happy to explain process to people that ask, and let them participate when possible and one-on-one. But as far as like formal education, just not really for me. I don't think I'm the right person for that. But I would love to like help out if someone does have that idea and give them some advice.
Perfect. And Victor, you've been showcased on the Travel Channel and Google Arts and Culture. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Google. Yeah, I think the Travel Channel had reached out randomly when we were doing a project in Louisville in Kentucky, and they just wanted to film a segment on what we're doing. Which is funny because now the Travel Channel has evolved into like a ghost themed channel, which is kind of odd. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Well, I mean, one thing I could say is, as far as like media and coverage, like it's great to like talk to people like you, just because it gives us a chance to like give more context to what we're doing. It's not just like one specific mural. It's part of like this national project in the bigger picture. One thing that I actually personally am happy we never did was force ourselves to kind of like talk on camera and be like this personality, like the influencer thing is just not really for us, and there were times when a lot of people have actually reached out to us and wanted to do like a show, but I think it just wasn't natural to Lisa or I. And I think the art that we create, a lot of it is not really about us. Like we want it to be about the community and all the different people that help us along the way. So.
Perfect. And so, Victor, give our listeners once again your social handles, your website, all of that, so people can go and look at your amazing, amazing work. I have no artistic ability in my body, but I can certainly appreciate when I look at what you do, and it's absolutely amazing.
Thank you. Yeah. Again, you could just follow us on social media. It's just at Greetings Tour. It's the same on like Facebook, Instagram, and even TikTok. And then because if you click through to any of these murals, we do really elaborate stories about how it all came together, and we really try to focus on the locals that help make it all happen.
Perfect. And folks, so you've got to go see the website and all these social mediums and follow them, because it's so cool. It's amazing actually when you look at the thought pattern that goes into it. So Victor, we're going to transition here a little bit. We're going to go into what's called our packed question segment. So we're going to rapid fire a few questions at you just to get to know you a little bit better. And in the quick rapid fire questions. Favorite movie?
Ooh, this is probably one of the most common questions that people ask, and I truly don't have a solid answer for this. Are these supposed to be like quick one-word answers, or?
Sure.
Yeah. I don't really have a favorite movie per se, but I like a lot of more like conceptual movies, so like the interstellar type of movies, you could say.
Okay. Favorite place you have ever traveled?
Favorite place to try, I think I mentioned before. I love Tokyo, Japan.
Is that one of the cleanest cities you've ever been to in your life? I've been there for business several times. It is so darn clean. I wish every city was that clean.
Yeah, it's really crazy, and people are just like very by the book, and you don't even see a single cigarette on the floor, cigarette butt on the floor anywhere.
Absolutely. If you have your umbrella, you just leave it outside in the umbrella holder and nobody touches it. Biggest fear?
Ooh, I guess I really try not to let fear be something that inhibits me. But I mean, I guess the scariest scenario for me would just be like to be in some kind of like paralyzed state where like I can see everything happening, but I just can't express myself. It's kind of dark, but that would be my
especially a person who's in the business of expression, right?
Yeah, that would be quite scary.
Your favorite band or artist?
Oof. Again, this is tough because I feel very uncool to answer this, because especially with amongst all my peers who are artists, but like I'm the weirdo that can literally work in complete silence these days. But I don't know. I mean, in the 90s, I was very much into like hip hop. And then these days, I kind of just listen to what my wife is playing a lot of times. So
you're a good husband. You're a good husband. You'll be listening to children's music a whole bunch.
Yeah,
too.
That's already happening. Yep.
Oh, how good is that? Tomorrow night I will be my wife and I will be at Eric Clapton. So
Nice.
there's a good one to go to. And the last rapid fire question I have in the pack question segment is, Victor, what is the best piece of life advice you have ever received?
I'd say this is a funny one because it wasn't advice to me personally, but also probably one of the most like famous marketing slogans probably in history. And I use this mantra my whole life, which is the "just do it" Nike mantra, and it's just I've applied it across my life, and kind of stand by that theme. And a fun fact is, I don't know if you actually know, but that slogan apparently came from like the final words of like a death row inmate, and I think his word was just like, let's do it or something like that, and became the Nike slogan.
But you applied it very differently.
Yep, definitely a different way, but
well, that is perfect. And Victor, thank you so much for being here, folks. Victor Fung, co-founder of the Greetings Tour. It is graffiti USA, graffiti art, but to a whole new level. This is absolutely amazing. Follow them on social. Go look at the work that they've done. If you have a city out there that you would like to have as greetings to your city, we have the person who can put up the billboard for you and paint it on a beautiful wall. Victor, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, guys. It was a pleasure.
We appreciate you. And folks, until next time, unplug from the indoors and recharge in the outdoors.